Today's show is sponsored by the New Orleans Bourbon Festival. Enjoy exceptional bourbon, bourbon seminars, and cuisine surrounded by the charm and culture of New Orleans. The dates are March 24 through 26. Learn more at NewOrleansBourbonFestival.com. We are also sponsored by Round Table Woodworks and BarrelChips.com. They are bringing whiskey smoke to your favorite foods with their authentic whiskey barrel smoking chips.
You are listening to the Firewater Review. This is a podcast dedicated to whiskey reviews. I am your host, Seth Brown. I am joined by my co-host, Aaron Cave. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How about you?
Doing great. About to pour a glass of bourbon, so I can't really complain.
As am I.
And we were just chatting before I hit the record button here, just about Aaron's busy day. I've had a couple of busy days myself, and it's time for a nice little pour here.
Yes, indeed.
So tonight, we're going to be drinking what I think is a pretty overlooked bourbon, in my opinion. It is Henry McKenna, 10-year bottled and bond.
And I'm with you, Seth. I believe it is very overlooked as well.
You don't see a whole lot of people talking about it or hear a whole lot of people talking about it. You don't see it posted much on Instagram. You just don't hear a whole lot about it. And I think it's kind of funny that it's a 10-year-old bourbon with a screw top.
I always say never knock the screw tops.
No, not at all, because there's some good bourbon out there that have screw tops on it. I just think it's funny that, you know, in the days of age statements falling off the bottles and even some of the lower, well, I call them lower end, but they're still really good, like the old Granddad bottled and bond, you know, that's gone to a cork. It used to be a screw top. Mm-hmm. I just think it's kind of, it's almost funny, really, you know, thinking about a 10-year bourbon nowadays with a screw top. But no, definitely don't knock the screw top. When did they update the bottles? Do you know?
It's been about 2 to 3 years, I would say. I'm pretty sure the new label's been about 2 years. Yeah, I would say about 2 years.
The old ones, did you ever have any of the old ones or see any of the older ones?
Yes, I did.
The ugly felt labels on them.
Mm-hmm.
With it was like a little copper wire that had a tag on it. And I mean, it was kind of cool, I guess. But I can only imagine that cost quite a bit to produce. So I ran up on a couple of those, I don't know, a year or two ago. They were, I don't know, probably 5 years old, maybe 6 or 7. They've been sitting on the shelf for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And, just some dusty looking felt. I thought it was kind of funny. So anyway, what can you tell us about Mr. Henry McKenna?
Well, it is a product of the Heaven Hill Distillery, which also produces quite a few different brands, some well-known brands like Evan Williams and Elijah Cray, which they actually share the same mash bill as Henry McKenna. So Henry McKenna shares mash bills with Evan Williams, Elijah Cray, and Fighting Cock. And what I love about this bottle is, as you said, it's 10 years old, it's age stated, and it's bottled in bond, which is, for me, I just like tradition all around, and to find something that's 10 years bottled in bond and $30 is just, well, I don't know how much it is in Georgia, but, $30 here in Ohio.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if the listeners know the laws of bottled and bond, but I'm going to just tell you about them now. But, for a bourbon to be, I guess, labeled as bottled in bond. It has to be a product of one distillation season at one distillery, and aged in a federally bonded warehouse under U.S. government supervision for at least 4 years. And it has to be bottled exactly at 100 proof. And if it is bottled at a different distillery, it has to be stated on that bottle where it was bottled and distilled at. So I just think that's really cool, that all these certain laws have to be met for it to be bottled in bond. Yeah. And then for this bottle to be aged 10 years in a federally bonded warehouse, I just think's great.
Yeah. Because, most of the bottled in bonds nowadays, this being the exception, of course, are, probably around 4 years. It's probably a mixture of 4 to 8 or 9 year old whiskey, just to meet that minimum 4-year-old requirement. But yeah, the Heaven Hill came out with the Parker's Heritage, the 24-year-old bottled in bond this year, and that's unheard of, really, for bottled in bond.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't think there's enough bottled in bond options out there today.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
You hear a few craft distilleries, wanting to do it, but so many are still early on in their production cycles that, they don't have distillate old enough to even be bottled in bond. And I don't know what the requirements are, what the paperwork or the filings for them to even do a bottled in bond whiskey to produce that. I have no idea what that is, but yeah, I can only imagine it's not something that's done overnight, but I would be excited to see some of these craft distilleries start doing bottled in bonds.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because a distillery here in Ohio, up towards Cleveland, just came out with the first bottled in bond whiskey or bourbon from Ohio since Prohibition. Nice. And I haven't picked up a bottle yet, but I'm itching to kind of go out and get one just to try it to see what it's like.
Yeah.
But so some craft distilleries are trying it, and if they can stand the test of time and get through those 4 years, it's very possible. And it's really hard for craft distilleries to hold on to their products for that long, just because they need to get them out on the market.
Right.
Speaking of Heaven Hill, their white label, just Heaven and Hill brands, bottled in bond, the 6-year bottled in bond is just phenomenal for $10. It's just a perfect, bourbon, just cheap bourbon, just for anyone just to sit back and enjoy for, $10, $11.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. It's Kentucky only, isn't it? I think.
It is, yes.
So I had the last time I was back home, I was at my my cousin's, and I stopped in their liquor store and picked up several. I think it was like 6 or 8 little 200 milliliter bottles of the Heaven Hill bottled in bond 6-year, and it was an old label. It was different from what they have out now, so it may have been sitting on the shelf, but it wasn't like super dusty. It was still the plastic minis. But then I picked up a 750 of the 6-year bottled in bond. And it's, like you said, it's phenomenal. And now anytime that I know someone that's driving through Kentucky, especially through Lexington, I say, stop at, Liquor Barn, and pick me up a Heaven Hill bottled in bond. And I said, it should be around 10, maybe $15 tops. I'll pay you back whatever. And so I had a neighbor just probably about 4 months ago, I guess. Her brother was on his way down from Ohio, I think, actually, and she had him stop and pick me up a bottle. So that's what I carried around on our neighborhood Christmas party, was the Heaven Hill bottle in bond.
It's a perfect one.
Yeah. They also have the Evan Williams bottled in bond, and I picked up a bottle of that yesterday. And I want to do a side-by-side of the Evan Williams bottled in bond and the Heaven Hill bottled in bond, just to see how different they are, if at all.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one to do.
Because I've heard that it's the same whiskey. It's just a different label that it goes to, everywhere outside of Kentucky, and then the Heaven Hill bottled and bond stays within Kentucky. So it's Heaven Hill definitely kills it on the bottled and bonds with Henry McKenna and then the other two that we've been talking about here.
Yeah.
Well, all right. What we do, we will take a short break. During the break, we will rate and review this whiskey, take some notes, jot it down. We base our scores on a 100-point scale. And when we come back, we will share said notes with you. We'll be right back. We talk a lot about bourbon on this show, and one of the most important things that I think we all three can agree on is the ingredients that go into a bourbon. The better the ingredients are that go into any whiskey, really, not just bourbon, but any whiskey, the better the final result is. Could you guys agree on that?
Amen.
Hell yeah.
So we have Pig of the Month.
Pig of the month. It's the Pig of the Month.
Yes. And that's one of the things that they tout, is that everything they do, everything that goes into their meats is all only free range, growth hormone free, and grass fed. It's all natural ingredients. There are no preservatives, nitrates, or additives. Nitrates are one of the big things that I know my wife looks for when she goes to the store looking for bacon.
Bacon.
It's hard to find bacon that does not have it. It is. It's hard to find bacon that does not have nitrates added.
Seth,
to it.
you are talking all fancy and scientific, and I love that. Let me tell the listeners, from my perspective, it's
Please do.
Good bacon. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Bacon.
Bacon. Seth, carry on. I love what you're saying. No, you're spot on. I just thought for the more like Evan type of people in the crowd, I wanted to be like, bacon. These pigs are good.
What makes Pig of the Month great, so great too, is the fact that everything comes, other than the bacon and the sausage, everything is just heat and eat. So that it's been fully prepared, no shortcuts taken. They're out there grilling the stuff and making it to perfection. So check it out.
Bacon.
It's shipped to your doorstep.
And speaking of that, if you use the code Bourbon Daily, shipping is free. So check them out at pigofthemonth.com.
Bacon.
Do it. All right. Welcome back, everyone. In the break, we tasted and took some notes on Henry McKenna 10-year bottled and bond. So now that we're back, we're going to share our lovely notes, our reviews, and provide a score for you. So, Mr. Aaron, would you like to kick that off for us?
I would love to. So, first thing I noticed looking at this, it's a nice, just amber, rusty color. Swirl it in the glass. It's thick and viscous. The nose on it it's got a great nose. A lot of flavor, or a lot of just different aromatics coming out. A lot of maple and caramel up front for me, followed by light hints of cocoa and peanuts. I get a little bit of cherries and raisins to it. Some light honey, cinnamon, oak, and even a little bit of anise and mint on it. And then for the palate, it's just got tons of depth to it. It's very thick and viscous on the palate. First thing that really hits me is it's got a nice peanut and pecan sweetness, or not really sweetness, but like a nuttiness to it. But it follows really fast with caramel and like a brown sugar, so it kind of reminds me of almost like a peanut brittle.
Yeah.
And then I get the cherries and raisins again, followed by cinnamon, rye bread. I get that anise on the palate as well, and it's got a lot of oak to it. But what I really like about this is the finish. It's not a super long finish, but it's long enough where, it gives you that nice warm feeling. That nice Kentucky hug.
Yeah.
There's a lot of oak to it, cinnamon, peanuts, and cherries. I get a lot of cherries at the finish. I think it's well balanced, and I really enjoy it. I'd say I give it about an 87 out of 100.
Nice.
It's definitely one I'd always have on hand. Now, we were talking on the break. I always do have one on hand, and it's just for $30, it's just a great solid pour.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, as we were talking before we went into the break, it's so overlooked and it's so easy to find. If a store doesn't have it, the chances are you could probably ask them to order it and they could get it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if your store isn't carrying it, then I would definitely ask about it, see if they can get it in. Because if you haven't had it, you can't, for $30, you can't lose, really.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a bourbon that just about any bourbon enthusiast or lover could pick up and pour and find something that they really enjoy about it.
Yeah.
I could not ever see a bourbon enthusiast drinking this and going, oh no, I'm not going to drink this.
Right.
It's solid. For me, I look at it and I think this is a traditional bourbon. This is what bourbon should be.
Yeah. No, I could agree with that. Absolutely. My bottle's about, got a little over a third of it left, but I'll definitely be picking up another one after it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, you mentioned the color, and it's funny because I had some notes here too that was one of the first things that really jumped out at me. It's a real deep copper, deep amber color to it. And I don't know why it jumped out at me the way that it did. I had a pour of it last night too, and wow, I don't remember it being that dark. So I don't know if I've been drinking lighter stuff lately. I don't know, but that definitely stood out to me. On the nose, the oak and cinnamon jumped out at me right ahead, but the oak it's very balanced. It doesn't overpower it. But I was getting a little nutmeg in there, and some brown sugar. But you mentioned raisins. I get a little bit of raisins in there, and I was picking up some citrus notes as well. And then at times I was getting some floral notes. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it's one of the more complex noses that I've had in a whiskey recently anyway. It's like every time I revisited it, I was picking up something else new, and I don't know. It makes me want to drink it more now.
Oh yeah.
But as far as the palate, for me, it was spicy up front. Got a lot of spice, red pepper spice, followed by some oak. And then it was some nice, thick, almost kind of chewy caramel and cherry flavors you mentioned. You got cherries all the way through it. But I definitely picked that up on the tail end of the palate. And it's great. It's got a good body to it. It's not super, super thick, but it's really nice and balanced. And it's just thick enough that it provides a little bit of that extra flavor to it towards the end. The one thing you mentioned, the finish not being super long, that's one thing I wish it did have, was a little bit longer finish. It's a medium finish, I would say. I like a super long finish that just keeps on giving, but this one lacked a little bit of that. But it was loaded with a lot of sweetness. It really was sticking to the sides of my mouth. But it was kind of funny though, because at times it would be dry, which I don't know what it is, but a lot of the Heaven Hill products for me tend to be that way. But it's not like they're consistently dry. It's good that, this one has a good body, a good mouthfeel on it. And then it's like right towards, when the finish really starts to kick in is when it gets a little dry, but then, that dryness kind of dissipates a little bit too. On the tail end of the finish, I got oddly enough some coffee bean and a little bit of tobacco, just kind of poking their heads in to say, hey. But I like it. I like it. Like I said, I wish the finish was just a little bit longer, just because I enjoyed some of those notes that I was starting to pick up, and then it just kind of went away. But I gave this an 86.
Oh.
An 86, so we weren't far off. So, I think based on that, that's a definite pickup.
Yes, I believe so. So that puts us at an 86.5. So, I mean, that's a solid score, and for $30, I mean, that's a definite, pickup bottle.
I think if we could redo my birthday episode, because I don't think this was on there for the bourbon show, this would definitely be an addition to that list. I don't think it was on there. I can't remember.
I don't think it was, and because I think I almost texted you guys about it, saying, "Hey, there's the 10-year Henry McKenna." But it's like you said, it's overlooked. A lot of people overlook it, and it's just something. The bottle's not flashy, so
it's really not.
It's just kind of, if it's sitting on the shelf, people just kind of skim over it and keep looking. But hopefully people listen to this episode, and next time they're at the store, they don't overlook it. They hit it and go, "Hey, I'm going to pick that up and give it a try."
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with all the age statements dropping from a lot of bottles. This one still has the 10-year age statement, and hopefully it will not go away. Hopefully it'll stay with it. And it's, I would say, close to being one of my favorite bottles. I was telling you, I always have one on hand. The store picks are kind of cool to find because you don't see a whole lot of Henry McKenna store picks out there.
Right.
And there are a few picks that are out there that are non-chill filtered, just to let you know.
Really?
Yeah. So Heaven Hill lets you do non-chill filter picks, but you have to kind of tell them, "Hey, I want this non-chill filtered." And I know there's been a few Elijah Cray barrel picks that have come through that are non-chill filtered, and I actually have right now a Bernheim wheat whiskey barrel pick that's non-chill filtered, and it's phenomenal.
Huh.
So I actually believe I have a barrel pick of Henry McKenna that I haven't opened up yet, but I believe it's non-chill filtered as well. I'll have to check with the person that picked it, but I've heard from different people that it was non-chill filtered, so I'm kind of interested to open that up and try that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find one. I see them online occasionally, but I've never been into a store that had one, so I'm gonna have to seek that out. I wonder if they're hard to get. Like if I just went to one of my stores and said, "Hey, let's look at getting one of these. I'll help you pick it."
I bet you if your store was into going down and picking one, and they just said, "Hey, I want this non-chill filtered," they would probably they'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
But and that's, I know Heaven Hill cut their barrel program for a while, but I know it's back open and people are picking barrels again.
Yeah.
Here in Ohio, there's not a whole lot of stores that pick barrels. We do have bars that go down and pick barrels, but not a whole lot of stores, which I wish our stores did. So yeah, if you could get on that and see if any of your stores would be interested in doing that, that'd be a really cool experience, I think.
Yeah. Definitely something I'm going to be asking about very, very soon. Very soon. Yeah, Heaven Hill, I mean, they've got I'm looking at 3 bottled and bonds right here. Heaven Hill, the Evan Williams, the Henry McKenna, and the Heaven Hill. So that's 3 bottled and bonds for right around $60 total.
Oh, yeah.
For 3 bottles. And with it being bottled in bond, that it's at least going to be 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's not age stated, it's at least 4. But then with the McKenna, I just can't, $30 for a 10-year-old bourbon. I mean, right now that's unheard of. I mean, you're getting non-age stated stuff for, 60 and 80.
Mm-hmm.
So you heard it. Pick it up if you haven't tried it. Well, that wraps it up for this review. Henry McKenna 10-year bottled in bond. Mr. Cave, where can the fine listeners find you?
Well, I am at Bourbon Cave on Instagram and Twitter. You can hear me right here on the Firewater Review. And I also write for the Bourbon Zeppelin and the Sons of Winston Churchill. Bourbon Zeppelin, I do high-proof single-barrel bourbons. And Winston Churchill, I do just about anything I can get my hands on. So I think I just had a couple Buffalo Trace reviews pop up the past couple days, so check them out.
Yes, you can find me there as well. I actually picked up a bottle of Buffalo Trace, just regular old Buffalo Trace for the little project that Mr. Hassey has us working on.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get on that, submit that to him. But you can find me on Instagram. I'm never really on Twitter that much, but I'm on there too. And I am Seth P. Brown on both of those. You can find me on this show, the Firewater Review. You can find us, the Firewater Review, on Instagram at Firewater Review. And you can find all the other lovely and wonderful shows that we are producing on abvnetwork.com. We've got several shows that have popped up. We got a few more coming. And something else I can plug. I will be heading down to New Orleans for the New Orleans Bourbon Festival. That is March 24th, 25th, and 26th, downtown New Orleans. So if you're in that area or you're going to be heading that way, look us up. I'll be poking around with a couple of other cats from the ABV network. That's it. That's all we got.
I am hoping to be there as well.
As you should. That'll be a good time. That'll be a great time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That does it for this episode. Until next time, see ya.
Later.
The Firewater Review is part of the ABV network. For more information or to become a sponsor, please visit abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.